Our next speaker is Christopher Barth, Head of Data and Analytics at Bergfreunde, Europe's largest outdoor e-commerce retailer. Chris will be discussing how Causal AI adds unique value to managing business performance in e-commerce. And just a reminder, please use Slido for any of your questions. Chris, over to you.
Good morning and welcome to the outdoor industry. This is about as emotional as it will get during the next 20 minutes. Thanks for your interest in joining us on that story of how we aim to decode e-commerce. This is part one of that story. Part two will be shared later by my colleague Alex in the technical track, which might be of interest for some of the data scientists in the room. As said, my name is Chris. I'm head of DNA at Bergfreunde, and Bergfreunde is Europe's leading outdoor apparel e-commerce retailer, next to Amazon and Zalando, to be fair. We roughly make about 300 million euros in revenue with 600 employees. We're active in 12 markets across Europe. Some of you from the UK might know Alpine Track as our UK business. And as probably many companies, yours included, the company once set out with the vision to be more data-driven. More data-driven in the sense of wanting to make, and we've heard about this earlier in the presentation, wanting to make more and better informed business decisions based on the available data set, based on the relevant data that is available for the business. For Bergfreunde, and this is, I think, the reason why we're all here, this is more about understanding the why and the how of our business performance and goes way beyond of what has just happened recently. So for us, it is very much about understanding the causal effects, the cause and impact of our business. And this is key because the Bergfreunde business model is unique and specially fitted to Causal AI. Every week, our operational decision makers get together and make decisions that might have a positive impact on our profit in a easily six-digit euro range. And if we make a bad decision, it goes the other way. And the reason why the business model is unique is because we, as decision makers, as an e-com retailer, we hold a lot of our fate in our own hand. We can make decisions that affect our business every day, every week, directly. And this is unique because as an e-com retailer in the outdoor industry, which is a highly fragmented industry, we have such a strong market position and we have a huge retail business, meaning we're working with something like 500 to 600 brands in the outdoor industry and have maybe a 10% business of own brand. We have a lot of leeway to make our own decisions, and we need to understand cause and effect so that we can intervene every week on the operations that we control. And in order to intervene, we need to understand the cause and impact of all of our decisions. In order to do so, about 2 years ago, we set out to create a new way of how we manage our operations. It's a company-wide operational business performance management process that is meant to provide transparency, meant to provide concrete and smart goals for everyone, and also to support the decision-making process. Not make the decision, as we just learned earlier as well. We're not here to make the decision for the decision makers, but we're there to support their decision making every week, several times, with the causal modeling approach that we're using. And this is very much driven by data, as you can imagine. And on top of data, this is very much driven by our understanding of how our causal flow within the business works. So we do work with everything that we do work on how we understand the cause and impact of our business. So yes, we do have dashboards available that do tell the business what has happened last week, and those are also built on our understanding of the causal flow. But we also use this causal understanding to apply counterfactuals and simulate and optimize next week's business performance. And one of the key tools to do so is the decision app that we jointly built with causaLens, that we're very happy to use, that allows us to simulate, based on a range of different intervention capabilities, what the business performance of the following week will be. And let me tell you a little bit about how we got there. Let me tell you a little bit about the story that excites me personally and that excites the team of how to decode e-commerce, how to understand how really the business works in terms of data from a data perspective, and how to actually drive business decisions in the future. The very first step was an understand of how the business works. So we spend a lot of time documenting business processes. We spend a lot of time understanding how decisions are made. There's tons of logical flows in the organization that document from a data perspective how the most important operational decisions are made today. It's a lot of a lot of time that went into this to eventually understand the causal flow, the cause and impact of the entire business. There's one screenshot up there that shows the causal flow of the organization. It's on the top left-hand side of the slide. And it includes more than 100 KPIs, more than 100 metrics that the organization, that the business stakeholders in the organization believe drives our business. And this is the foundation of everything that we do on how to use data in a causal sense to drive our decision making. And the next step then was to actually decode those decisions. We wanted to use the business understanding and get to a point where we can use causal modeling to actually help make those decisions and understand cause and impact. In order to do so, we started with a fairly simple visualization of how our business works. That's probably very similar to many of the businesses that you guys are involved in. So there's a top-line business metrics, almost like a mathematical formula, and then there's two main input variables, which is marketing and pricing, or marketing and merchandising, that have a huge impact on everything that we do in the business, that have a huge impact on our top-line business metrics. And of course, it doesn't end there, but before we go into more depth into marketing and merchandising and to pricing strategy, there's also a few external factors that we need to consider. One of the external factors is weather. As an outdoor apparel retailer, weather is our best friend if it turns cold and wet. So we like it cold and wet. Probably not everybody in the room agrees, but for our business, that's the best that can happen. So as soon as the weather turns bad, we see our sales go up. And we have learned to quantify the impact of every degree Celsius average temperature less than normal on the business, on the different product categories. As you can imagine, rain jackets have a different sensitivity on temperature than, I don't know, t-shirts. But that's important for us to understand the impact of weather. And then there's, of course, other external factors, like what does the market do? How does our brand perceived? But the most important external factor, for sure, in the outdoor industry is weather. But let's have a deeper look into what we can actually control internally, which is marketing and pricing strategy. So what you see here is a simplified view on how marketing investment decisions and product margin investment decisions are made in the company. And that's probably not surprising, what you see here. In general, the team gets together every week and says, this week we believe that we can achieve a certain CPR, which is cost per revenue, which is the main metric that marketing uses to steer their paid investments. So they know from historic knowledge and experience, this is a week where we can achieve a certain CPR. Based on that CPR, the algorithms out there, Google algorithms, Meta algorithms, drive the CPC, the cost per click. And so we know and we understand that with a given CPR target, we drive CPC decision making by an algorithm from Google and whatnot, which drives our visits, which in the end drives our orders and demand sales. If we look at merchandising, merchandising has the main objective to maximize product margin. So they each week get together and say, this week we expect a product margin of X%. Based on that expectation of product margin, they set out to define their pricing strategy. They decide how deep and how broad our discount, our rebates are in the store. So every week they set out to do exactly those things based on a given product margin target. Those discount nodes, as we say, depth and width of the discount, then drive mainly the AOV, the average order value of a basket of a customer, as well as the conversion rate. So this is how we set out to every decision in the organization that drives in the end our revenue and hence our profit, to document this and turn this into a causal flow and understand exactly how this works. And then finally, we were able to turn this into math. And this is where the help of causaLens came in, together with our data science team. And we saw this before. We created first, that was a human-guided process, we created a causal graph, and that causal graph eventually was turned into this causal graph in the platform. And this causal graph, this actually is the representation of the structural causal model. So for each of those nodes that you see here, there's actually the algorithm behind, the functional form, and then the aggregation form in each of the child nodes. Once this was done, we knew what the model believed, what the relationship of each of the nodes was, whether this was monotonic, linear, whatnot, and we could analyze and understand what actually is happening in the business. And finally, this was the foundation to then go out and support our business decision makers with simulating next week's business performance. So what you see here is the simulation, the scenario tab of our application. And it's just a part of it. But what we can do here, we can simulate with sale events. We can say, hey, we will have an on-top discount for customers that is going to be valid for 3 days next week. We can say there's going to be a public holiday next week, and this has a specific impact. We can also, and we do, integrate the weather forecast into here. So the model knows next week we'll have 14.2 degrees average. And of course, as I said before, marketing and merchandising input their specific operational KPIs on how much marketing invest versus revenue they're targeting, as well as what is the product margin product margin that we're expecting for next week. And this then helps us to simulate the outcome, what you see here on the right. And we've also seen a heat map earlier. We also work with the heat map that allows us to optimize where exactly we should spend marketing, what is the right CPR, what is the right product margin to invest. So this all helps the business to simulate next week's performance. But it doesn't end here, and this is what gets me excited. It's about really decoding and ever better understanding what's going on in the business. So once this model was live, we spent a lot of time trying to understand what was actually going on and what did not work as expected. So we looked at the causal graph and we identified a range of areas where we realized, that's not exactly how the real world works. We need to take a deeper look into that. For example, an aggregated node on product margin does not represent the pricing strategy enough in terms of working with old merchandising, working with new merchandise. So this is something that we needed to take into consideration. Another area within the merchandising area was, as probably many of you are involved, is the Black event or Black Friday, Cyber Week, whatever. Now it's almost a full month. Black event is different to anything else that we see across the year. Why is that the case? Because we do see that there's an organic increased demand in the market that the model doesn't know about based on the internal interventions that we can do. So we need to teach the model, Black Week is coming up. You need to know that there will be an increased demand in the market that we don't control. And the model needs to know this. So that was also something that we spend a lot of time on understanding and helping the model to take into consideration. Then on the marketing side, also here, working with an aggregated node didn't help us enough. We needed to take into consideration that Google has its own agenda, right? Google doesn't necessarily do exactly what we want Google to do in terms of this is the target CPR that we want. So we need to take this into consideration and help the model understand that. And we needed to get more granular on some of the owned channels, especially email communication, because email communication is a very specific channel that helps us on low demand days to decrease CPR and increase visits. But if we just look at the aggregated visit metric, we might not take the impact of email communication into account as it should be. And then my most favorite one was holidays. So in Germany, we're German-based, so we look at Germany a lot. In Germany, there's 8 public holidays. And when I started this, I thought each holiday is the same. That's not true. We have 3 different sets of holidays that we need to take into consideration, and we needed to learn about this impact of public holidays on our business and teach the model how to work with this. And this is what happened. What you see here is a snapshot on how the causal graph now is becoming more and more granular, and this is under development at the moment. It will be launched in 2 weeks, so we'll have an ever more accurate model that helps us reflect the real world. What you see here is an example of a more granular approach on the pricing strategy. So here you have more granular view on the different kinds of product business unit and product seasons that we need to take into account. And what you see here is the more granular view on the marketing side of our world. And what you see here, and these are my favorites, are the 2 yellow ones. I think it's hard to read, but the 2 yellow ones reflect our learnings on public holidays. There's a special public holiday impact of a public holiday on a Monday. In e-commerce, most of you know this, the Sunday is always the strongest day, but not if the public holiday is the Monday, if the next Monday is a public holiday, let me put it that way. So we need to teach the model, watch out, this Sunday is not going to be as you know, because the Monday following is a public holiday. That's an important shift that the model needs to know. And the second thing that the model needs to know is there are actually high or peak driving public holidays and low driving public holidays. That's logical if you think about it. Christmas, for example, the first 2 Christmas holidays, there's basically no business going on, and also the 1st of January, very weak business days for us. And we need to teach the model that not every holiday is the same. So this is what we have integrated in here. And then there's a few more things around the green nodes, which is all around email communication, which we've added also more granularity for the model to know the actual impact. In general, and this is after roughly 3 months, 4 months of having the first iteration of the model live, we're very happy, we're very satisfied with the output. The model itself is almost, after 3 months, almost as accurate as the human forecast. So every week, we control what does the human forecast for the next week and what does the machine forecast for the next week. After 3 months of work, we're as accurate as the human. And we're just at the beginning. The humans have already 15 years of experience. So we're very positive that we will get to a good output here. Statistically, the model is very accurate. You see the MAPEs up there, but that's only part of the story. The more important part of that whole story is that working with causaLens, working with causal modeling, working with a causal graph and a structural causal model has changed the way that the organization is talking about the business performance. It has changed the way how we look at the performance of last week. It has set a new language within the organization. People are talking about drivers. People are talking about why. So just starting this journey, starting the journey of decoding e-commerce has had a tremendous input value, which goes way beyond the accuracy of this model. Thank you.
Thank you. There were quite a few questions coming through. I'm not going to give you all of them, but just a couple. How many people in the team to get this far?
So the core project team was roughly 5 people, plus the causaLens side.
That's good. That's a small team. We should have more. Yeah.
Don't need.
Questions on how you kind of touched a little bit, but how do you verify your causal graph?
Okay. So I think part of the answer you saw with we're looking at the MAPE every week. That's one part. And the second part is we're very much interested in causal graph surgery, as we say. So we look at basically every node and every edge between nodes on a continuous basis, trying to understand whether the functional form that the model is currently using makes sense. So this is how we look at the impact and the value of it basically every week.
Brilliant, thank you. Has the model come up with any surprising suggestions or things you weren't expecting? And if so, how did the team react to this?
I don't know if it was surprising. I think the model has led to more confidence on the business decision maker side of making courageous decisions. For example, weather turns bad, let's not discount as we would normally have done. So that's one thing that I think the model helped us to do, to be more courageous on what we maybe already knew, but now we have the data to support the decision.
A friend to back you up.
Yeah.
And again, this is sort of a related question. It was regarding the simulation, but I think it relates to everything here. So does it work? Have you implemented decisions and then observed the actual outcome that you predicted?
Oh, yeah.
How accurate was it?
Yeah. It does work, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if this was the same in the UK, but 2 weeks ago, the weather for the first time dropped below 15 degrees average Celsius. And knowing this in advance, being able to simulate the impact of that temperature drop, that had a tremendous value for the organization. I can't speak about numbers, but it was worth it, for sure.
Excellent. We like that idea. Final question, because I know we're at time, but there were several questions all around the documentation. I think we're just impressed by what we did there. So about documenting your business logic and flows, how mature was the environment when you started it? Did you already have the proper documentation data sets? There are a few different questions on the documentation.
Okay, I need to be a bit cautious with this answer. I would say there was a lot of implicit knowledge in the organization. I mean, the organization is 15 years old, and the group of people that drove the success of the business have been there for 15 years. So there's an extraordinary amount of experience and expertise there. But it was mainly implicit, and I just made it explicit, or documented it. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Really
Thanks.
good presentation.